Attention, attention please. Stand by for another episode of
When Humanists Attack.
Hi, this is Chris West from When Humanists Attack. We are a 501c3 not for profit religious organization in the state of Vermont, founded on secular humanist basis. And all the content of this video is a part of the project under that 501c3. We're going to have an interview today with Mandisa Thomas from Black Nonbelievers. And I'd like to welcome Mandisa Thomas. Mandisa, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me, Chris. It is a pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much for taking the time out to speak with us. I can see behind you have a sign. You guys are right up to your 10th anniversary. So just give a little bit of background on what Black Nonbelievers is and why you started it.
Absolutely. So Black Nonbelievers is another 501c3 nonprofit organization headquartered in the Atlanta area, Atlanta, Georgia. And we are an organization that connects, builds community for, and increases the representation for Blacks who are atheists or who also identify with similar secular humanist labels. And we also provide support for those who are questioning religion in favor of leaving, because it can be such a challenge within the Black community because it's still so very highly religious to, to openly identify as an atheist or non-believer. And it became necessary back in 2011 to start an organization in Atlanta that really started to bring more of us together to foster community, to increase networking, and to provide support for those who needed it.
Tell me a little bit about you. Tell me a little about where you grew up, what was your family like, what led you on the path towards your current non-belief.
Absolutely. So I am not a Georgia native. I am a New York City native, born and raised in Jamaica, Queens. I was actually not formally raised in a religious household. My maternal grandmother, my maternal grandparents, for that matter, were pretty non-religious. They were pretty accepting of varied perspectives. And I can recall many holidays where there was no prayer over meals. Most of like the Easters were very secular. And so, and I also was raised directly in what is considered a Black nationalist or Black conscious household, which some would consider woke now. I learned a lot about Black history and culture growing up. I learned also about institutional racism, which did include learning how Christianity was forced on the enslaved Africans and their descendants. And so, I really had a childhood that was rooted in education and awareness, and I consider myself lucky, especially growing up in New York. However, I did not escape religion. I did not escape the church. I'm a classically trained singer and had been singing in various churches with my voice instructor since I was 5. And so I remember being exposed sort of as an outsider to religion in the church, and remembering that none of the doctrine or the teachings made any sense, and that it also seemed to be binding, confining, and also kind of scary. And as I grew up and as I saw the impact that religion in the church has on people, particularly within the Black community, it only it only served to strengthen my non-belief, my atheism. For a time, I identified as spiritual, but not religious. But over time, I really came to the atheist identity and sought community, and ultimately ended up being a part of building it, which I attribute to my upbringing and being outspoken, and being militant, and also being very creative. So all of those factors really played a part in where I am today.
So in 2011, you started Black Nonbelievers. Were you the sole person behind the formation, or did you have a group? Or a little about that would be interesting.
Actually, I am the founder of the national entity. Black Nonbelievers as a group was co-founded locally as Black Nonbelievers of Atlanta in 2011. The intention actually was to just stay local to Atlanta because there were other entities. You had African Americans for Humanism, which was under the Center for Inquiry. There was also Black Atheists of America, which was based out of New York, and also Black Skeptics Los Angeles. So we really only sought to be local to the Atlanta area to build up that community, to increase the networking there, and also to work with other local organizations. However, as time went on, that later on that same year, and some of the the original founding team stepped away. uh, we really got to a point where we saw the need to expand to a national organization. And so from there was where we really started to reach out to other organizations and to other people across the country. It's always a team effort,
Yeah.
but yes, I led the charge on the national, the national scope.
There's something that you said when you were talking about the impetus behind starting Black Nonbelievers Atlanta and then going national. You said the problems of belief within the African American community, and I know what I think of when I hear that or when I think about it. But I'm interested in knowing what you thought the downsides were to belief within the African American community.
If we look at the history and traditions of the Black community, we know that the church has been played a huge part in that, building community and also in the representation, the number of people in the Black community who still believe, especially in Christianity. Part of that is attributed to having said religion forced on the enslaved Africans, as well as again their children and their descendants. And part of the problem with that belief and why so many still believe in it is because it is a serious paradox. This is the religion that pretty much enslaved us. This is the this is the religion that is responsible for institutional racism, white supremacy, and other things that we deal with, other disparities. And so for our communities to hold it in such high regard, and we still have to face, these other challenges that we are still seeing here in society, it's exhausting, and it's a bit disheartening to see so many still hold on to the church as being almost the sole sense of representation or support within the Black community, which hasn't always been the case. There's always been diversity and people who have rejected these beliefs and these institutions. But the fact that there's still such a majority, and to be Black and to openly say that you are rejecting, you're going against a very powerful machine, because you see so many people who come from the church, and their religious community is so large that it wields a lot of influence. And when you try to have these conversations, I mean, it's expected for many in the Black community that someone who is non-Black to let go of belief in God. But when you are someone who is of the community and who is Black, then it can be considered much more damning. Also, at the same time, it's very curious, because we're still so fewer in number that it's intriguing to see those of us who openly identify as an atheist or non-believer. So there's a lot more curiosity there, but at the same time, we also need to have this critical discussion of the church in our community, and how it now is almost like this burden to us, whether it's emotionally, financially, and also as a community. And this is just something that we can't ignore anymore.
I imagine the majority of people that you interact with in the African American community are Christians, but there's also a very large non-Christian but still theist community within African American culture. The Black Muslims and Islam in general, but and Yoruba and all these other streams. What's your take on the place of not Black nonbelievers within the larger say, ecology of Black culture?
It's really well past the time, and we've been working towards this, that we take our rightful place within our communities because we've always been there. We, as an organization and as individuals, we educate on the number of very iconic Black historical figures who were actually non-believers and who actually challenged the institution of the church. W.E.B. Du Bois, for example, who was one of the co-founders of the NAACP. And we see that, that is an organization that is still very highly religious, even though their foundations are rooted in free thought. We also look to Dr. Carter G. Woodson, who was the founder of Negro History Week, which later turned into Black History Month. He was also a critical figure in free thought and challenging religion. We can also look to people like Lorraine Hansberry, Zora Neale Hurston, and Butterfly McQueen, who openly stated her atheism and strongly stated it. And so these are often the people who either are forgotten about or that aspect of their legacy is omitted. It is part of our duty as an organization and as people who are representing secularism, atheism, and non-belief to re-educate folks on this history. It isn't something that they have to take our word for. It's
Right.
pretty much right out there.
There's an actual
So
history, a long tradition.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it also helps for others in many communities to understand that there are more Black folks out here who don't believe, who are questioning those beliefs, and they're actually leaving them behind, especially more millennials now. And this has been the case for years, for centuries, even if folks want to ignore it. So we are now taking our rightful place and expanding the narrative and also reshaping it, which is something that, for those who champion religious freedom, is what this is all about.
Right. Yeah, religious freedom is key. I love the use of the term free thinkers, because I think it's just one of those terms that's underused within the atheist and secular humanist communities. It's the only of the terms that really makes me go, oh, thinking freely, that's a good thing. I mean, atheist, okay, right, and humanist, yeah, and secular, great, but I'm thinking free, that's a thing I can do. Right.
Yes, and that is a thing that the religious community warned you about. Beware those free thinkers, right? Beware of those who challenge, the dogma, who challenge the status quo. We're the ones that they fear the most.
Yeah,
So
that's
yes.
true in all across all of those lines, right? If I say the word atheist to some people, that's as big a trigger as Satanist or
Yes.
humanist, right?
Yes.
That can be a really big one. I wanted to know more about the breadth and extent of Black nonbelievers at this time.
We have affiliates now. We have active affiliates in the Washington, D.C. area, in the Charlotte, North Carolina area, in Detroit, Michigan, in New York City, my my hometown. We also have affiliates in St. Louis, Missouri, Louisville, Kentucky, Orlando, Florida, and Portland, Oregon. So yes, we have expanded beyond Atlanta for sure. And that is something that was one of the reasons why we expanded, because there was interest in starting similar groups in different cities. And even though there were other organizations that were similar to ours, they weren't doing exactly what we were doing. We were meeting regularly. We were going out and tabling and actually being active and engaging people and meeting them one-on-one, meeting them in person. And so that made a difference. And many people wanted to do the same thing or similar. And so we were building a model of community building that others wanted to replicate in their own areas.
What is your outreach program? How do you contact, or how do you gain more access to people who might be interested in joining your organization?
We are very active on social media. We are on Twitter. We're on Facebook. We are on Instagram. I actually get a co-host a quarterly radio program here in the Atlanta area, which is on FM radio. That also helps with our outreach. I personally respond to people who contact us on our website. We have been contacted for numerous interviews, numerous media appearances over the years. We've been featured on CNN twice. We've been featured on CBS Sunday Morning. I've been featured in Playboy. That's always fun to say. And so, yes, we are very, very active. We're on social media. That is the best way to reach out to us. We are also active on Meetup. That's where we post our events, even the virtual ones, because we found that is the best way to engage folks. We've also tabled at various events, even though, yes, many find it to be very taboo and intimidating to state that they're an atheist, non-believer, humanist, freethinker. We've actually gone into, that lion's den, if you will, and put ourselves out there to say that we are open. And it's made all the difference. I actually recall the first time we were the first time we were asked to do a video interview. And some of our members were almost deathly afraid to speak on camera. But what ended up happening there was people started to empathize with what the members went through. They started to understand our perspective. And in doing so, the more inquiries that we got, the more people wanted to speak. And so that really told about, the story of our growth and how we cultivated community in that. So it really has made a huge difference in just being out there, even for those who can't be. Even if those of us can represent for the others who still are in that closet, then we're making a difference.
From my point of view, the secular humanist, the free thinker, the activism has just exploded in the last, I'd say, 5 years. Even things have really gotten crazy,
Yes.
with people being willing to say, yes, not only am I a non-believer, but I want people to know that I'm a non-believer. I'm not going to be quiet when someone posts something on Facebook and says, I just got an A on this test. Everybody say amen. You're like, I'm actually not going to say amen. I'm going to say, well done. It's all you. There's nobody
Absolutely.
else in the room.
Right. And it goes beyond the scope of being comfortable with stating that you're a non-believer, because that is a part of our personal development,
Yep.
which is everyone has the right to do. But also, we speak up when we see that religion and other dogma is being infused and inserted into public policy, something that affects all of us. When it interferes with our everyday life, when it interferes with reproductive justice, racial justice, we have not only is it the right, it is important for us to speak up on that
Yeah.
and actually correct the folks who think that is okay, because it isn't. And then we find that there are other religious folks who agree with us, and there's been such a privilege among that community that they think we don't exist, and they need to know that we do, and they
Yeah.
need to know that that privilege needs to change and go away, that they are not the only ones in this society, and they're not the only ones who actually, who care about human beings and such. There are those of us who do, and we don't have a God hanging over our heads. So yes, it is important for us to speak up when we can, not just for our own personal development and also how to have these conversations with others about our position, but also to speak up on the things that affect all of us as human beings.
Yeah. Modeling behaviors so that other people see that there are other options is a really
Yes.
big and important thing. That's, I think, for me, one of the biggest issues I have with any believer, whether they be African American or any person of any shade, is how their belief affects how what laws are chosen and what laws are made, and how people feel welcome to express themselves. There's a huge cost for a lot of people to expose themselves and say, you know what, I've been questioning, even if they're not all the way through the journey, even if they're not to the point where they're willing to say, I'm no longer believing. The cost, the social cost, the stigma is so big. And seeing somebody else in the room who is willing to stand up and say, look, I don't believe that, and that's okay. I'm not telling you what you're believing is wrong. I would say that what you're believing is wrong, but you have a right to believe something that I think is wrong because I'm believing something you think is wrong. But that somebody else sees that in the room and goes, wow, there you go. That is another
Right.
person. That's a person I can emulate when I have a question. That free thinking guy or that free thinking woman.
Absolutely. Everyone who is a non-believer, atheist, and humanist, their journey is important. However, when we look at those who come out of religion, those and who were fundamentally religious,
Yeah, yeah,
and they go up against their churches, they go up against their communities and start questioning, the cost to them can be great, and it can be grave. And there are many who have, they've lost their communities, especially if they grew up Jehovah's Witness. You're excommunicated probably at the drop of a hat when you start questioning those beliefs, and which can be very emotionally traumatic. It can be mentally traumatic. And so and this is what has been important about us building those communities and those safe spaces for people to know that they aren't alone, and that there are others who are either just like them or very similar, and coming from that background again of being religious, it can be a bit more challenging. And so it is important for those who feel like they've lost that community, or they just don't want to be involved with them anymore, which
yeah.
can still take an emotional toll. It is important for them to know that they can build a new family and a new support system out of it.
Now, this is something that my gay and trans friends have known for decades. Uh, you know, I've been ostracized because I've decided I'm going to live the life I want to live the way I want to live it. And that is in conflict with these people's beliefs. So I'm going to go out and make my own family. And seeing that that's a journey that you can make and survive.
Absolutely. And when you come from communities that are just a bit more dogmatic, like if you're Black, gay, or trans, and oftentimes when your struggles are often erased, those that can be even more of a challenge, because we have a lot of LGBTQ representatives within our organization, and we are very pro LGBTQ. Having those extra added layers of a challenge and dealing with societal stigmas and putting the atheist on top of that
Yeah.
is just that much more. It can be that much more of a hill to climb when we're dealing with these when we're dealing with these things. And that's what we just need, for more people to understand that there is such an intersection with those identities and with what we already go with already what we go through. It's that
You mean,
there are
and
just so
I just want
much.
to clarify, you're talking about just being a person of color in a racist society?
Being, yes,
Yeah, yeah.
that, and then also being gay, or being an atheist as well.
Yeah.
So yes, there are often these extra challenges that we have to deal with.
That's the list of bad cooties that the religious people will go, ah, tell me a little about what your vision is for, Black nonbelievers in the next 10 years. Where do you see it going?
I certainly would love for us to continue what we've already been doing. And even in the 5 years since we celebrated our fifth anniversary in 2016, we have connected with such organizations like the National Museum of African American Culture. They have been exploring what religion looks like in the Black community, especially amongst millennials, and they now understand that there are more non-believers in this mix. So we have been, they have tapped us as a resource for representatives of our demographic. And we've connected with the Religious Freedom Center on and sharing our perspectives on religious freedom and what that means within the Black community. And I certainly would love for us to expand to more cities, to have more people involved and on the ground in their local neighborhoods, even if it's definitely just getting people together on a more social and support level. We would like to expand on our community outreach. We co-founded the Zora Neale Hurston Scholarship Fund for Black college students with the Secular Student Alliance. That debuted in 2020, and so we would love to have more support for that. I mean, I would absolutely love for this to be a paid job for me and others. I was working full time up until 2018. So I was working in conjunction with running the organization until the activism really took off. And so at this point, it is still volunteer fundraising is still a huge part of what we do in order to maintain our outreach. So I would love for us to be as prevalent in any community as any church is, but that we are not just telling people to pray on things.
Yeah.
We're actually encouraging them to action, whether it is in whatever form of community building that they're or community activity that they're doing. So there are a multitude of things that we really would love to do, that I would love to see us do more of for the next 20 years, or for the next 10, 20, 30 years.
30, 50.
Yes, because we have actually cultivated new leadership, new activists. We've been involved in building content. We've contributed to the content of other authors and other filmmakers. And so we would love to continue to do that. We want to continue to expand that narrative that we know is needed.
What can we as allies, like just like I do with the LGBTQ community, I'm an ally, and I ask them, what can I do to be a good supporter, a good ally? What can I, as a cis white guy from New York City who's living in Vermont, do to support your efforts and to be a good ally?
It is important definitely to listen to our perspectives, listen to our experiences, listen to what we go through, and also listen to our advice on how to engage other religious Black folks or even other Black atheists, because there are still many who are overcoming those beliefs. And so it's important that you take in the information that is given, especially as an ally. It's always important also to support and donate. It is important to donate to the work that we do, because I am not ashamed to say that we are Black centered. We do center. We welcome everyone, and we do have other speakers that are non-white who participate with us and support us, and who also speak at our events. But our mission is to be Black centered and to help cultivate that demographic. And it's needed, especially within our community, where almost all of the resources are still very white and male dominated, which there is nothing wrong with on its face, but there are other voices out there. There are other activists out there who definitely need the exposure and support. So in supporting our work in bringing that out really does make a difference, and it allows us to do more. So definitely, I would recommend that any ally, and also in checking their privilege, making sure you ask the questions, also do some serious reflection. I personally don't like to do the whole guilt thing, because we're all still learning. There's a lot that we that many folks just didn't know, and
Yeah.
but now is the opportunity to do better and learn better. So there's a lot of things, especially regarding privilege, that you don't just have to always apologize for it, but once you know better, then you do better. And so listening and actually supporting and making sure that the voices who need to be heard
Are given the
are.
space to be
Yes,
heard. Yeah.
yes, absolutely.
That's great advice. One of the things that I do as a an intellectual is I try to learn about the real actual history of America and the real history of uh, the slave trade, the ending of the slave trade in the late 1700s, early 1800s, because we had enough African American slaves that by bringing in more slaves from Africa, we were cutting down on the domestic trade. I mean, I think it's important for people to take it upon themselves to learn our history. I don't think you can have an opinion about a country, a foreign country, unless you know where it is on the map, what the capital is, who the most recent president is, and something about the history, like colonial history. And then I'll listen to you have an opinion about it. I feel the same way kind of about other communities within America. If I don't take the time to know enough, then having an opinion is uninformed, and I should shut up and listen.
Right. It's on the onus of us all to do that research. You don't have to be Black to know Black history.
That's right.
You
It's our
really, really
history.
don't. It is. It
Yeah.
is important to American history, the accomplishments of Black folks and the resilience and the struggle. It really does affect all of us, and it's important for people to know how that has impacted this country and this economy, about having a system of enslavement where there were people who built this country for no pay at all and no credit, and who also had to suffer through it. How this has built America, and how the mistreatment of those communities and those people has been a part of America since its beginning.
Yeah.
And so for those who look at America as being, this great country, and I'm not saying that it isn't, but there's also been that side, that ugly side, that so many of us have had to endure and learn about. And it's important to have that balance, not to make people feel burdened in any way, but that they're looking at the reality, and they see that, and they understand that there's still a lot that needs to be done.
Yeah.
There's still a lot that needs to change, and that we have the ability to do it.
Yeah. Mandisa, I could go on for hours, and hopefully, at some time in the future, you and I will sit down at a conference that we can be at in person. I
Yes.
can I can buy you a drink, either alcoholic or non, depending on what your preference is, and we could chat about just about anything. I know you have this huge conference coming up next week. Tell us a little about the conference, just so we have the information about it. We'll be posting all this information. This won't be airing until after the conference, but
Right.
I'm sure you'll have post conference information. Tell us a little about
Absolutely.
the 10th anniversary celebration.
Yes, so our 10th anniversary celebration is going to be a hybrid event. It's going to be a smaller in-person event where we are complying with safety and social distancing guidelines. And it will also be streamed. There will be a streaming component there. We will be video recording this event, and the sessions will be available on our YouTube channel. So your support is still needed to make this event successful, and that we have, and to ensure that we have more events to come in the future. So we will be featuring a variety of speakers, from organizers to activists to filmmakers to authors, those who have been very, very active within the community, and they also have resources, and they also have information that is vital to our communities. And so it really does show the diversity of our organization and what we've been cultivating for the past 10 years, and the many arms of the movement that we engage. So this will be a reflection of that. It will be a mixture of education, uh, and fun as well. We want people to be engaged. We want people, to be informed, and we also need for people to support. This will just be more of a representation of our organization and our community.
Great. What day is it?
The event itself will take place from January 15th through the 17th. The streaming sessions will take place on January 16th, starting at 9 a.m. Central, and will be a half day on Sunday the 17th. So
Okay.
you can register to stream that event online.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for taking your time and letting us know more about your organization and why you founded it. And I encourage everyone to go and check out the Black Nonbelievers website, and also check out, just type in Mandisa Thomas and check out the number of different media that are out there with you saying awesome stuff. I originally saw you on, I believe it was the Atheist Experience,
Yes.
something like 4 years ago, 3 years ago, and I've been a big fan ever since. So thank you for taking time out to talk to us.
Thank you once again for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Great. And this is Chris West for When Humanists Attack. Until next time, have a good day.